The night I first tasted fear was not under a storm, nor inside a haunted house. It began quietly, on an ordinary evening in our remote riverside village, more than 35 years ago, when I had just stepped out of my teenage years and thought I understood the world. Back then, the river was our lifeline, and my father was the bridge between villages. He was a boatman, the kind who knew every bend of the water, every strange current, every whisper the wind carried after dark. But that year, something unexpected struck him. A sickness, one that drained the color from his face and stole the strength from his hands. The day he collapsed, I still remember the distant echo of the river lapping against the wooden banks, as if calling out to him, or warning him. For a week, he lay inside our small hut, sweating, shivering, unable to even sit upright. But life does not stop when fear arrives. Our survival depended entirely on my father's work, and when I looked at my mother, eyes tired, worried, counting the last remaining coins, I understood what I had to do. I had to take his place. So one humid evening, as the sun bled red into the horizon, and the river turned the color of rust, I stepped into my father's old wooden boat. The wood felt colder than usual, as if touched by something unseen. The ropes were rough, wet, and smelled strangely bitter, like something had soaked into them overnight. I remember looking back at my father. He was sitting by the doorway, too weak to stand, yet watching me with eyes full of warnings. He could not speak. In that silence, even the crickets stopped chirping. "Be careful on the river after dark," he whispered weakly. Not a request, a warning. But I was young, brave, foolish. I pushed the boat from the bank and let the river pull me away. The evening breeze carried the damp smell of mud and something else, something faintly rotten, lingering far off from the deeper bends of the water. I ignored it. I had to. People were already waiting on the other side. All day, ferried villagers back and forth, women with baskets, men with tools, children holding their parents' hands. The river seemed normal at first, but as the sun disappeared completely, a strange heaviness settled in the air. The river became darker, not just because of the night, but as if something beneath the surface was swallowing the light. By the time the last passenger stepped off at a distant village, I realized the ghats were emptying. Other boatmen were leaving early. Their lanterns flickered like frightened fireflies as they vanished one by one into the fog. Soon, I was the only one left, alone, on a river known for whispers, with a night that felt older than time itself. I tied the boat to the wooden post, bought some food, and waited for someone returning toward my village. But no one came. The silence thickened, the fog crawled closer, the moon hid behind clouds, as if not wanting to witness what was about to happen. And somewhere deep inside, a small fear awakened, a fear I did not yet understand. I leaned back in the boat for just a moment, just to rest my eyes. But what happened next would pull me into a darkness far older, far hungrier, and far more terrifying than anything I had imagined. Because when I opened my eyes again, I was no longer alone. When my eyes opened, the world around me was strangely silent. A silence so heavy that it felt like it had weight. For a moment, I couldn't tell if I had slept for a few minutes or a few hours. The sky above was darker than before, moon hidden, clouds hanging low over the river like a shroud. My heartbeat was the only sound I heard. Thump, thump, thump. Slow, heavy, uneasy. As my vision cleared, I felt something. A presence. Someone was standing right beside my boat. I didn't hear footsteps. I didn't hear a call. But a man, tall and still, was staring down at me. He was too close. Closer than anyone should be to a sleeping boatman. For a second, his face was only a silhouette against the dim, shifting light. But his voice cut the silence like a knife. "Brother, wake up." I jerked upright, cold sweat on my neck. He wasn't like the usual travelers. His eyes looked hollow, almost as if they belonged to someone who had forgotten how to blink. His clothes were wet, not from the river, but as if he had walked miles through mist and dew. Strands of his hair stuck to his forehead, and droplets slid down his cheeks like tears. But there was something else, something I couldn't name. His shadow, felt wrong. Maybe it was the angle of the lantern, maybe it was my tired mind, but his shadow seemed longer, stretched unnaturally across the ground, as if it wanted to crawl into the boat before him. He told me the name of the village he wanted to go to, a village close to mine, just across the water. Usually ask for the fare first, but in that moment, I felt something shift inside me, an instinct, a sense that arguing with him would be unwise. So I simply nodded. "Sit," I said, but he didn't climb in immediately. He hesitated, glanced over his shoulder toward the empty, fog-covered bank, as if checking whether someone or something had followed him. Then he stepped inside. The boat creaked under his weight, louder than normal, too loud. It echoed across the silent river like a warning. As I pushed us off the bank, the water below seemed colder, thicker, as though the river itself was resisting the movement. The man sat silently at the bow, staring forward, never blinking, never turning. Most travelers ask questions. They chat. They clear their throats. They do something. But he was still, too still. Even the air around him felt different, almost colder. The small lantern flame flickered violently each time the boat swayed near him, almost as if it feared him. As we moved, the fog grew denser. Shapes formed and dissolved in the mist. Tall shadows, elongated figures, as if something walked just beyond sight. "Do you live there?" I asked to break the silence. He didn't answer. I tried again. No response. His head tilted slightly, as if he was listening to something I couldn't hear. A whisper, a call from the fog-covered riverbanks. When we finally reached his village, and I let him off, he turned to me very slowly. His lips parted, not to smile, not to thank me, but to say something so soft, so quiet, that the wind almost swallowed it. "Don't stay out here tonight." His voice was trembling now, almost afraid. "Go home, and don't look back." Before I could ask what he meant, he walked away into the darkness of his village path, vanishing between the bamboo trees. I didn't know then that this was the first warning, that the river was about to reveal its true face. But when I turned my boat to head back home, the fog behind me thickened again, and this time something inside it was waiting. As the stranger vanished into the darkness of his village, I felt a strange relief. The air around the boat seemed lighter, as if his presence had been weighing down the night itself. But that relief didn't last, because the moment I turned the boat toward my own village, the river felt different. The water moved sluggishly, thick, almost sticky against the oar. The breeze that usually traveled freely over the surface had died, and the fog had grown so dense it looked like swirling cotton, floating just above the water. A stillness fell over the river, not silent stillness, a living, breathing kind of quiet that felt alive. It was then I noticed something was wrong. The other side of the riverbank, which should have been barely visible, looked distorted. The outlines of trees bent strangely inward, as if leaning to watch me. The moon hid behind clouds, refusing to shine any further. I tried to row faster, but the oars felt heavier and heavier, as though the river did not want me to leave. The fog parted suddenly, and that's when I saw them. At first, I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me. Through the pale haze, across the water, a group of pale shapes stood unmoving. Figures, human-shaped, tall, silent, facing me. Their clothes were hanging loosely on their bodies, long white garments, drenched and clinging to them, making their shapes seem even more elongated. 1, 2, 3, then more, 7 or 8 of them, all standing on the riverbank across from me. I squinted, trying to understand what I was seeing. Maybe it was people from some late-night ritual, maybe fishermen, maybe travelers. But then the wind moved, and the white garments they were fluttered, revealing something beneath. A face, if it could be called a face. Their heads were smooth, featureless ovals, like someone had taken a human skull and erased every detail. The only darkness was the place where the eyes should have been. 2 empty pits, blacker than the night around them. My grip on the oar tightened. The boat suddenly jerked forward, as if something under the water had nudged it. I almost lost my balance. The figures did not move, did not blink, did not breathe. They only watched, I tried to convince myself I was imagining it. My nerves were tired. It was late. The fog was confusing my sight. But then one of them stepped closer to the water's edge. Not walked, not ran, stepped. A slow, jerky movement, as if its limbs were not meant for a human body. My chest tightened. Another stepped forward. Then another, all of them edging close like curious animals studying prey. The wind returned suddenly, fierce and cold, almost angry. The water sloshed against the boat, making it sway violently. I dug the oars deep into the river, rowing hard, desperate to pull away from them. But the boat kept sliding sideways, as if something was pulling it toward the bank where the figures stood. My breath grew shallow. A whisper swept across the river, not from ahead, not from behind, but from the water itself. A chorus of faint voices. Beneath me, the white figures leaned forward, their heads tilting unnaturally far to one side, like broken dolls. Their black eye pits seemed to widen, stretching into deeper, darker voids. That was the moment I realized. They were not people, not ghosts, not anything I had ever seen or imagined. They were something else, something older than our stories, something hungry, and they were no longer just watching. They were waiting for me to come closer, waiting for the fog to swallow the last bit of distance between us, waiting for the river to deliver me to them. As the boat drifted closer, pulled by an unseen force, I could no longer tell if the pounding I heard was my heartbeat, or footsteps approaching from the bank. Either way, there was no escape from what was coming next, because the river was giving me to them. The fog around me thickened so fast it felt alive, curling around the boat, wrapping itself around my arms, my throat, my breath. It was as if the river had grown hands, cold, invisible hands, dragging me where I did not want to go. I forced the oars into the water, pushing with all the strength I had left. But the river no longer listened to me. It moved on its own, slow, steady, deliberate, toward them, toward the white figures waiting across the bank. My heartbeat hammered in my ears, loud enough to drown out the sloshing water. The boat jerked sharply, as if something had grabbed its underside. I froze, because now, the water beneath me didn't look like water. It rippled with a darker shade, almost black, swirling quietly, like a massive shadow moving just below the surface, following me, guiding me. I swallowed hard. No, 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 I whispered, my voice breaking. The white shapes on the bank had stopped moving. Every one of them stood perfectly still, facing me directly, their heads tilted, studying me with unnatural fascination. And then I heard them, a sound so faint it almost blended with the wind. Click, 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 click. Not footsteps, not breathing, something else. Something like nails tapping on stone, something like teeth grinding. The boat slid forward on its own, straight toward the bank. I didn't want to look. I knew I shouldn't look. But terror has a cruel way of pulling your head toward the very thing you fear. My eyes lifted, and I saw it clearly now. It wasn't a normal riverbank. It was a graveyard, a forgotten, abandoned stretch of land where old graves tilted under wild grass. Wooden markers leaned at strange angles, names erased by time and weather. The white figures weren't standing randomly. They were standing among the graves, guarding them, feeding on them. As my boat approached, more details became clear. Their bodies thin, stretched, almost skeletal beneath the white cloth. Their hands long, bone-eating in claws, each fingertip black and razor-sharp. Their faces hollow, sunken pits where eyes should be, and mouths that were not mouths at all, just torn, black openings, leaking quiet, animalistic growls. My breath caught in my chest. They were bent over a grave, a freshly dug one, and inside it, I saw something pale, something human, a body, a corpse they had dragged halfway out of the dirt, its brittle arm hanging loosely from the open grave, its skin split and torn. They were feeding in silence, swiftly, mechanically, like animals that knew they must finish before the living arrive. The second my boat drifted close enough, all of them stopped. Not gradually, not slowly, instantly. Every creature froze mid-movement, their heads snapping up toward me in perfect unison. 7, 8, maybe more. I couldn't tell anymore. All staring, all smelling, all sensing my presence like a fresh meal delivered to their doorstep. My arms trembled as I gripped the oar. The wooden handle felt strangely wet now. Even though I hadn't touched the water, the fog lifted just enough for the moon to slip through. And that's when I saw it. Their mouths. They weren't black holes. They were open wounds, stretching unnaturally wide across their faces, as if something inside their skulls had ripped the skin apart from the inside. A low rumbling sound rose from them, not one voice, but all of them together, a deep, hungry growl, the kind a pack makes before it attacks. I pushed at the water again, but the boat barely moved. Something beneath was still holding it, pulling it slowly toward the graveyard bank. One of the creatures stepped forward. Its body moved with an unnatural jerk, each limb bending too far, too loosely, like it didn't fully understand how joints should work. Another followed, then 2 more. They were closing in. My throat dried, breath vanished. Every instinct inside me screamed the same thing. Fight. Fight or die. When the first creature reached the edge of the water, it crouched low, placing its long, taloned hands into the river. The water around its hands turned black instantly, spreading like ink. It leaned toward me, close enough that I could hear it breathing, but the breath wasn't human. It was wet, thick, gurgling, like a drowning person inhaling water instead of air. That was the moment something snapped inside me. I grabbed the boat pole with shaking hands and swung it with all the force I had left. The wooden pole struck its face with a horrible, crunching sound. Black liquid spilled out. The creature staggered back, hissing, clawing at its broken skull. The others shrieked, a sound that tore through the fog like a knife and made the hair on my arms stand straight. They rushed at me. I swung again and again and again. I didn't feel brave. I didn't feel strong. I felt terrified, fighting for life with pure panic and instinct. The creatures recoiled, screeching, retreating toward the graves. Then, suddenly, they turned. One by one, they scrambled toward the water. Their thin legs bent the wrong way as they threw themselves into the river with violent splashes. The water swallowed them instantly. Within seconds, they were gone. Not a ripple remained. Only the fog, the graves, and the half-eaten corpse, watching silently from the open earth. My hands trembled uncontrollably. I didn't try to bury the body. I didn't dare step off the boat. I just grabbed the oar and rowed with everything I had. But even as I moved away, I felt it again, that suffocating sensation of being watched. Hundreds of unseen eyes. From the fog, from the trees, from beneath the surface of the river, and something under the boat followed me, slowly, patiently, because the night wasn't done with me yet. Night fell over the house like a suffocating blanket. The kerosene lamp in the corner flickered weakly, its flame trembling as if it, too, feared what lurked in the darkness. The air inside had turned unnaturally cold, heavy enough that every breath felt dragged through ice. Rafik sat motionless on the cot, clutching the old lantern. His eyes were fixed on the far corner of the room, the same corner where the shadowy figure had appeared the night before. His heart beat painfully slow, as if anticipating another encounter. But what came was far worse. It started with breathing, not normal breathing. This one was raspy, low, and so close that Rafik felt the air shift beside his ear. He jerked around, but nothing was there, just the darkness stretching endlessly behind him. Then came the whisper, a soft, broken voice, like someone whose throat had been torn open, leaned into his ear and hissed, "I found you." Rafik's body froze. His mind screamed to run, but his legs refused. The whisper grew louder, circling him, moving from ear to ear, as if an invisible presence drifted around him slowly, enjoying his fear. "I see you. I hear you. I'm right behind you." Rafik snapped his head back. Again no one. Only silence. Only darkness. Only the weak lantern flame shaking violently. And then the smell hit him. A rotting, wet, earthy odor like a body dragged from deep mud filled the room. Rafik gagged as the scent thickened, settling around him like a fog. The shadows on the walls began stretching unnaturally long, twisting like crooked fingers. Suddenly, the lantern died. Darkness swallowed the room whole. That's when he heard it. The footsteps. Slow, wet, dragging. The sound came from outside the door, then closer, then right at the threshold. The wooden planks creaked as if something heavy leaned against them. Rafik held his breath. And then, the impossible happened. Someone or something slid its nails across the door from top to bottom, producing a slow, high-pitched scrape. The sound was so sharp, it felt like it cut into his bones. Scraw-aye. Rafik stumbled backward, trembling. The thing outside stopped scratching. The silence that followed was worse, unnaturally complete. The kind of silence that comes right before a scream. Then he heard a voice from the other side of the door. Not a whisper now. A deep, guttural growl. "Open the door." Rafik didn't move. He couldn't. The voice grew angrier, shaking the entire doorframe. "Let me in." Suddenly, the door handle twisted violently. Something slammed into the wood once, twice. Again, each impact stronger, as if an enraged beast was trying to tear its way inside. Rafik covered his ears, shaking uncontrollably. His eyes darted around the darkness for any escape. Then the banging stopped. Silence returned. Thick, dead, unmoving. Rafik didn't dare breathe. After a few seconds, a single whisper seeped through the crack beneath the door. "You can run, but you will never leave me behind." And then, the footsteps slowly retreated into the night. Rafik stayed frozen until dawn's first light crept into the room. Only then did he realize something chilling. On the inside of the door, the side facing him, were fresh scratch marks, deep and long, as if the thing hadn't been outside at all, as if it had been inside the room with him the whole time. Rafik stepped outside his room, his legs trembling from the previous night's terror. The village seemed unusually quiet. No children playing, no birds chirping, no sound of the nearby field. It felt as if the entire world was holding its breath. He decided he could no longer stay inside the house. Something was wrong, something beyond human understanding. He walked toward his neighbor Idris's hut, hoping to find help, or at least someone who had heard the noise. But halfway there, he noticed something strange on the ground. Footprints. Not human footprints. Not animal footprints. These looked twisted, with elongated toe marks that dug deep into the soil like the creature's bones were shaped wrongly. Some prints were so deep, they looked as if something heavy had been dragged through the mud. The trail led away from his house, then abruptly turned back, circling it, again and again. Rafik's blood ran cold. It had been watching him the whole night. He turned to hurry away, but froze. Something was standing beneath the old neem tree, a tall silhouette. Still, motionless, watching him. The figure's head was tilted unnaturally far to one side, almost resting on its own shoulder. Its limbs were long, too long, as if someone had stretched them in torture. Rafik blinked once, and the figure disappeared. A gust of cold wind swept across him. The air felt heavy with the presence, pressing against his skin like unseen fingers. Suddenly, kirk-kirk-kick. A bone-cracking sound echoed behind him. He spun around and saw the figure again, now much closer. The sunlight couldn't touch it. Instead, shadows clung to its body like wet cloth. Its neck bent even further with another sickening crack. Then its jaw dropped open violently, dangling loosely, as if unhinged. Rafik stumbled backward, horrified. The creature took a step, not walking but crawling. Its limbs twisted inward, bones snapping as it lowered itself to the dirt. It moved like a spider whose body was broken in several places. Every time it took a step, its bones clicked loudly. Tack, 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 tack. The sound echoed through the empty village, chilling Rafik's spine. He turned and ran. He sprinted toward Idris's hut, lungs burning, heart pounding, sand kicking under his feet. But halfway there, he heard it again. Tack, tack, tack. Closer, faster, too fast. He didn't dare look back. He burst into Idris's home only to find the door already open. The inside was dark, silent, dust floating in the beam of sunlight like tiny ghosts. "Idris, bye," he called, voice cracking. No answer. He stepped inside, every instinct screaming at him to leave. The room felt wrong, colder than the outside, suffocating, as if all the warmth had been drained. Then he heard breathing, deep, slow, right above him. Rafik looked up. There, pressed flat against the ceiling like an insect, was Idris's body. His eyes stretched wide open, mouth frozen in a silent scream. His hands were twisted backwards, joints bent in directions no human arm should bend. But Idris wasn't the only thing on the ceiling. Beside him, with its face inches away from Idris's, was the creature. Its pale, hollow eyes stared directly at Rafik. Its jaw opened wider and wider beyond human possibility, revealing darkness that seemed to swallow the dim light. Then it whispered, in a distortion that chilled his bones, "You should not have run." Before Rafik could react, the creature dropped from the ceiling, hitting the floor with a sickening thud, bones snapping, limbs bending, yet somehow, it stood up instantly, its head twisted full 180 degrees to face him. Rafik screamed. He ran out of the hut, not caring where he was going, only wanting to get as far away as possible. The world around him blurred into a whirlwind of dust and fear. He could hear the creature behind him, its crawling bones scraping the ground in an unnatural rhythm. Tack, 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 tack. It was getting closer, too close, too fast. Rafik stumbled into the fields, falling to his knees. He couldn't breathe. He couldn't think. Then, silence. No footsteps. No breathing. Nothing. He looked up slowly. The vast field was empty, calm, still. Maybe it was gone. Maybe he had escaped. But then, the earth beneath him began to tremble, soft at first, then stronger, like something huge was moving under the soil. And before he could react, a hand burst out of the ground beneath him, grabbing his ankle. The creature had gone under the earth. It pulled with unimaginable strength. Rafik screamed as the soil opened beneath him like a hungry mouth. He clawed at the ground, kicking, begging, praying. But the whisper rose from below the earth. "I told you, you can never leave me." The ground swallowed him up to his knees, then his waist, then his chest. He screamed until the earth filled his mouth, and then everything went silent. Rafik thought he was dead. He felt dead. The last thing he remembered was the earth swallowing him whole, the creature's cold fingers dragging him downward into suffocating darkness. But when he opened his eyes, he found himself lying on something soft. Grass. Wind brushed against his skin. He could hear crickets. The scent of damp night air filled his lungs. He was outside, staring at the endless sky, stars swirling above him like frozen, watching eyes. He sat up slowly. His entire body shook in terror when he realized where he was. He was lying beside the old graveyard at the edge of the village, the place avoided even in daylight, the place where villagers whispered that the dead didn't always stay buried. And he was lying on top of a freshly dug grave. The soil beneath him was loose, moist, and cold, like someone had buried something, or someone not long ago. His hands were covered in dirt. His nails were chipped and cracked, as if he had been clawing his way out of the ground. He looked around. Not a single bird, not a sound, not even the wind. The world felt empty, abandoned, as if the night itself was holding its breath. Then he noticed the forest line. Shadows seemed to gather unnaturally between the trees, forming shapes that curled like smoke. The air around him grew colder, not normal cold, but a cold that felt alive, crawling across his skin like invisible insects. Rafik staggered to his feet, dizzy. He didn't know if he had been unconscious for minutes, hours, or days. He didn't know how he got here. He only knew one thing. He wasn't alone. A soft crunch came from behind him, the unmistakable sound of a footstep on dry leaves. Rafik froze. Another step. Then another. Slow, careful, purposeful. He didn't want to turn around. Every instinct screamed at him not to see what was there, but he couldn't stop himself. His breath caught in his throat. Standing between the crooked tombstones was a figure. Tall, thin, its body shaking as if struggling to stand. Its limbs bent wrong, jagged like broken branches. The moonlight barely touched it, melting into its dark, twisted outline. Slowly, the creature raised its head. Its face was pale and stretched like wet leather pulled too tight over a skull. Its eyes were hollow pits that seemed to suck in light. and its jaw hung open in an unnatural, wide crack. Then it smiled, not with lips, but with its entire face stretching like ripped cloth. Rafik stumbled back, heart hammering, but the creature didn't move. It simply stood, twisted head tilted, watching him. Then he heard it, a faint whisper drifting through the graveyard. "You died." Rafik's blood turned to ice. The whisper continued, softer, closer, "But I brought you back." The creature took a slow step forward. Rafik backed away, trembling uncontrollably. Another step. The creature's bones cracked with every movement, wet, sickening snaps that echoed through the graveyard like breaking branches. Snap, crack, pop. Rafik turned and ran. He sprinted through the graveyard, dodging tombstones, dirt flying under his feet. But the whisper followed him, surrounding him, drifting through the night like mist. "I'm inside your shadow now." Rafik didn't look back, but the world around him began to warp. Tree trunks twisted into faces. The moon pulsed like a beating heart. The shadows beneath the tombstones crawled toward him, stretching long fingers across the ground. His lungs burned, his legs trembled, but he kept running until he reached the edge of the graveyard. Then suddenly everything went silent. No wind, no whisper, nothing. He gasped for air, trying to calm himself. But when he looked down, his shadow was wrong. It didn't match his movement. It didn't stand where it should. It was too tall. And then his shadow smiled at him. The same torn, impossible smile as the creature. Rafik stumbled away, horrified. But the shadow stretched longer, rising from the ground like black smoke, forming a body. A broken whisper echoed from the darkness. "We are the same now." The shadow rose taller, taller, towering above him. Rafik screamed, but the shadow lunged forward, swallowing him in darkness. Darkness swallowed Rafik thick, suffocated, endless. He couldn't scream, he couldn't breathe, he couldn't even move. He was falling through a void that felt alive, like a throat swallowing him deeper and deeper. Every second, he heard whispers, layered voices. Some human, some not, all of them chanting, begging, demanding, "Stay with us. Don't go back. You belong here." A flash of white light exploded in front of him. A pair of glowing eyes opened, massive, hollow, unblinking. Then he hit the ground. Rafik gasped, awake. He was lying on the muddy path leading toward his village. The night sky stretched above him. Crickets chirped. The world seemed normal again. His body ached as if he had been running for hours. But something was wrong. He felt heavy, as if something hung on his back. His breathing was uneven. His hands trembled uncontrollably. When he stood up, he heard footsteps behind him. Slow, wet, dragging. He spun around. No one. Only an empty dirt road, covered with moonlight and fog. Rafik took a step forward. The footsteps took a step too. He froze. His heartbeat thundered in his chest. He walked again, faster. The footsteps behind him also quickened, matching his rhythm perfectly. It wasn't an echo. It wasn't a dream. Something was following him. He broke into a run. Mud splashed under his feet. Branches whipped against his face. The village lights flickered faintly in the distance. Safety, warmth, life. But the thing behind him ran faster. He could hear its breathing now. Wet, animalistic, hungry. Ha. He didn't dare look back, but he didn't need to. Its shadow appeared beside his own. Long, twisted, flickering unnaturally, as if it didn't understand how to mimic a human shape. When Rafik reached the first house in the village, the street lanterns suddenly went dark, one by one, as if someone walked under them, crushing the light. Pop, pop, pop. Darkness chased him through the lanes. He rushed into his yard and slammed the door behind him. His mother jumped from sleep. "Rafik, what happened? Where were you?" He didn't answer. He couldn't speak. His teeth chattered violently. His skin was cold as ice. His mother touched his forehead and gasped, "You're burning." But Rafik didn't feel hot. He felt frozen, like something inside him was draining all warmth. His mother lit a kerosene lamp. The moment the flame flickered alive, Rafik's shadow on the wall twisted. It stretched long, breaking its shape, rising up the wall until it nearly touched the ceiling. His mother screamed, But when she blinked, the shadow snapped back into normal shape, as if nothing happened. Rafik grabbed her hand. "Ma, something followed me." His voice cracked. His mother, shaking, brought out holy water and began reciting prayers. But as soon as she started, the flame in the lamp shivered violently. Then it bent sideways, as if an invisible mouth blew on it, and went out. Darkness filled the room instantly, and in that darkness, something breathed. Not Rafik, not his mother, something else. A deep, guttural exhale rattled the walls. Rafik grabbed the lamp and tried to relight it with trembling hands. But the matchstick refused to spark, as if moisture had soaked into it, even though it was perfectly dry. His mother cried silently. Then a soft tapping noise echoed from behind them. Tap, 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 like long nails teasing the wooden floor. Rafik turned toward the sound, and saw two faint white eyes staring at him from the corner of the room. Not glowing, not bright. Just two chalk-white circles floating in pitch black. And then a second pair opened. Then a third. Then a fourth. His blood froze. There were many of them. They blinked, but not in sync. Each eyelid closed sideways, like an insect. The eyes slowly rose from the floor, climbing up the darkness like insects crawling up a wall. Rafik stumbled back, pulling his mother with him, but the creatures didn't move. They simply watched, studying him, following every movement of his breath. The air in the room grew damp and cold. Rafik's breath became visible, white vapors floating in the dark. One of the pairs of eyes leaned forward, and he heard it breathe near his ear. "You escaped," another whispered. "But we came too." Then all the eyes blinked together, a single, unified, unnatural movement. Rafik screamed. The door burst open. His father rushed in, holding a lantern. The moment the light entered the room, every single pair of eyes vanished. Instantly, as if they were never there, the only thing left was silence. A horrifying, unnatural silence. His father looked at him, pale, shocked. "Rafik, what did you bring home?" Rafik didn't know how to answer, because whatever followed him wasn't finished, and it wasn't alone. Rafik barely slept that night. Even though his father stayed beside him holding a lantern, even though his mother whispered prayers until her voice cracked, Rafik felt something standing just outside the circle of light, watching. Every time the flame flickered, he felt a cold breath on the back of his neck. Every time the shadows moved, he thought he saw those pale, insect-like eyes blinking from the darkness. The creatures hadn't left. They were simply waiting for the light to die. By the time dawn approached, Rafik felt weaker than before. His skin was pale, almost gray. Veins crawled up his arms like thin black lines. His body felt heavier, as if something inside him was growing, rooting, spreading. His mother sobbed quietly. His father prayed under his breath, but nothing stopped the cold crawling under Rafik's skin. When the first light of morning touched the windows, Rafik felt a sudden relief, as if the creatures had retreated. But the relief didn't last, because as the sunlight brightened, Rafik's shadow didn't appear. The sunlight struck his body, but the ground beneath him stayed empty. No shadow, nothing. His father stepped back in fear. His mother covered her mouth. Rafik stared at the floor, trembling. "Baba, Ma, what's happening to me?" His father whispered, voice shaking. "You left your shadow in the graveyard." Rafik's heart stopped, because he knew what that meant. His shadow wasn't simply gone. It was stolen, owned. And shadows always belong to only one kind of creature, the dead. The creature returns. That night, Rafik's father brought a local spiritual healer, an old man who had survived the river spirits for decades. His hands shook, but his eyes were sharp. He examined Rafik silently, tracing the black veins on his skin, then whispered, "They marked him. They fed on him. Now, they want the rest." Rafik felt his blood freeze. The healer continued, "They cannot touch him in daylight, but at night, they will come to reclaim what they started." His mother burst into tears. His father clenched his fists helplessly. The healer placed a thick protective rope soaked in blessed oil around the house. He drew ancient symbols on the walls with ash. He lit 5 lanterns and placed them in every corner of the room. "These flames must stay alive till dawn," he warned. "If even one lantern goes out, They will enter. Rafik swallowed hard. What do they want from me? The healer looked at him with heavy eyes. You killed some of them. Buried ones. Hungry ones. Now, they want to take from you what they lost. Rafik's voice cracked. Will they kill me? The old man shook his head slowly. No, they don't kill. They take your shadow, then your warmth, then your breath, then your place among the living. Rafik shivered violently. He felt something crawling under his skin again. Something cold. Something not human. Night falls. When the last trace of sunlight vanished, silence fell across the village. A silence too perfect, too heavy. Not a dog barked. Not an owl hooted. Not a single wind blew. Rafik's mother sat beside him, clutching his hand. His father guarded the door. The healer recited old verses, his voice shaking between breaths. The lantern flames flickered softly, casting long shadows on the walls. Everything felt fragile, too fragile, and then, a soft scratching sound came from outside. Skirt, 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 like nails dragging across wood. Rafik's father lifted his lantern toward the window. A pale shape slid past. Then another, dozens. They're here, the healer whispered. Rafik felt ice drip down his spine. Something pressed against the walls of the house. Countless hands, countless bodies, countless faces pushing from the outside, warping the wooden planks inward. Then one of the lanterns flickered sharply. Then again, Rafik's mother gasped. No, no, not now. The flame struggled, like something invisible was sucking the air around it. The healer shouted, protect the lantern, don't let it die. But before anyone could reach it, puff, the lantern went out, and the house went silent. All four remaining flames began trembling violently. The wall beside Rafik bulged inward as if something punched it from the outside. A long, thin finger pierced through the wood. Then a second, then an entire hand. Black nails, pale flesh, writhing veins. Rafik screamed. The hand tore the wood apart. A face appeared, the same twisted, stretched face he saw in the graveyard. Its jaw hung open unnaturally, its hollow eyes dripping dark fluid. It spoke without moving its mouth. Give it back. The healer threw blessed ash at it. The creature shrieked, falling backward into the night. But more hands punched through the wood. More faces appeared in the windows. More whispers crawled into the room. You left us hungry. We waited for you. We want your warmth. Give us your shadow. All the lanterns flickered violently. The healer stood up, shouting prayers louder, faster, desperate. But the creatures were already inside. One lantern fell and shattered. Darkness swallowed the corner of the room. Rafik watched as pale, skeletal figures crawled out of the shadows like spiders, limbs bending backward, faces twisting, jaws cracking open wider than humanly possible. They surrounded him. One whispered in his ear, "You escaped once." Another hovered above him, "But you belong with us now." A third reached for his chest. "Come back to the earth." Their hands touched his skin. Cold, burning, suffocating. He felt his breath leaving his body. He felt his warmth draining. He felt himself fading. He felt his shadow calling him back. The healer threw his last handful of sacred ash into the air. A blinding flash lit the room. The creature screamed, recoiling. But the final lantern fell, its flame extinguished. Darkness swallowed everything. Rafik's scream was the last sound anyone heard. Dawn in the morning, the villagers broke the door and entered the house. They found Rafik's mother unconscious, his father bleeding from scratches. The healer collapsed. But Rafik was gone. No blood, no footprints, no signs of struggle. He had simply vanished. The only thing left was a single mark burned into the floor. A dark, twisted shadow. A human-shaped stain. His shadow. And it wasn't Rafik's. It was smiling. Did you enjoy the story? Let us know in the comments. And if you liked it, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to The Horror Dream. Want more stories like this? Subscribe to The Horror Dream, and we'll bring you more darkness, just for you. If you enjoy a little chill down your spine, stick around, like, share, and hit that subscribe button, right here on The Horror Dream. Your support keeps us going, so stay with us. Subscribe to The Horror Dream for more spine-tingling tales.